everybody. Thank you for being here, and thank you for the BSA to give me this opportunity to show you and talk about a little bit about my work. I hope I'm talking loud enough. So I'm going to read a little bit just in the beginning, so you just keep me going, and I don't want to miss saying this. So I would like to say, and I start saying that I always believe that self-knowledge is an essential part of my art, like of my process and on my journey as an artist. My experimentation is all about personal growth. I know it all sounds selfish, but it is. And it's a constant battle between what is mine and what is not. My exploration is all about belonging and appropriation. The questions that I usually am asking myself is like, where is that idea coming from? It belongs to me? I cope with it, like I believe in it, or is it time to discard it? So once you have that process, once you go to you have some responses, then comes the personal resolution, right? Do I keep it? Do I make it? Do I change it? Or I just discard it and I just move on? So I think part of having that thought process is how you grow, right? As now you know, I was raised and born in Mexico City. I chose to choose this, like to show this photo, is because here you will see like this main, like as Mexico is a Catholic country, and so you see this big cathedral there, and then just I don't know if it's clear to see, but there is a little green top. In that little green top, in 1976 or something, they discovered an ancient space. So it's believed that under that big cathedral is like this monumental historical site. So I like to show this photo because, as you will see with my talk, there is always this duplicity, and then there is always this mix in culture that I always deal with it. So I'm coming from a big family. This photo was taken last year in celebrating my dad's 80th anniversary, like birthday, and that's me. I'm around 1 year old, and I will answer right now, it's not a wig. My mom always was asked if I was wearing a wig. I was not. Sometimes I ask how I got into clay and how I got into making things, and it's hard to answer, but I think I can point to aspects of my life. So one is my great-grandmother made cakes for living. So I remember I have in memory like helping her with dealing with the dough, and she will make everything from scratch. She will have a little plaster, so where they have these little like the faces of the little dolls that she will make, and then I remember all that process, and I just remember it's just right there. And the other thing is I have an aunt, and she had a little factory, like a clay factory. By the time I was like older enough to remember, like to see that factory was gone, but at home we always like were living with pieces that she made, so it was just there, right? Like we were living with those pieces, and we knew that they were handmade, and that's it, right? So I think that is also another part that it was there. It was feeding me, but that's it. But life took me to another place. So I studied food chemistry. So this is just the facade of the school. And then so I spent 4 years there studying food chemistry, and then life took me to another place. So this time I met, like making the story short, I met a Canadian, and I moved to Canada. To the nice weather Canada. So here, I came here actually to Hamilton, and then I start trying to get a work where what I have studied, right? but I couldn't. I had to go back to school. I didn't want to. I didn't feel to. So then I started taking classes here and there. So I took, and then I found Mohawk College, so I took a night class there where I I fall in love with the wheel, right? And again, I guess I have the history there behind. So then when I discovered throwing and the wheel, I just fell in love. I was happy, but there was a point that I want to know more. As some of you are aware, so you come to a class, but they will make the glazes for you, they will fire for you. So I want to have a little bit more control. So then I found about the Sheridan program, and by then it was a 3-year program, and then I went there. So, of course, once you are in school, the teachers start pushing you, right? Just to go a little more of your comfort zone. So I think this is a second-year program or first-year program. I'm not sure, I don't remember. But the idea is that you have to make a platter that is 30 pounds. So it sounds daunting, but I think the idea behind is that you overwhelm that. If you are overwhelming, you show yourself that you can do it, right? It's 30 pounds, it's hard, it's big, they're big. You make more than 2 or 3 because you know they're not going to survive. But I think, behind there is yes, you can do and you can go big and then you can do it, right? So I think that's the idea behind. So that's my platter. One of them survived. That is the one that survived. But then my third year, I was asked in one of the critiques or something, why not to make something like a sculptural-wise? I still love, I was still in love with the wheel, but I didn't have an answer, right? Why not a sculpture? Yeah, why not? So I start pushing myself, and then so I make this piece. This piece is tiny, but I couldn't let go the functionality. So I make an opening, it's going to contain something, it's going to have another function, right? Another purpose, just not a sculpture per se. Again, I'm still thinking about throwing, so I make it on the wheel. So the couple next photos that I will show you, that's what I mean. So right now, I couldn't let it go the component of the wheel. So I'm throwing the body, and then I'm altering the shape and adding things. I'm leaving those marks behind because I want to show how it was made. Another good thing about Sheridan is that we have access to different firings. So they have a salt firing, they have a wood firing kiln, and that's how. So this piece, again, I made it on the wheel, I alter, and then I put it into salt firing. And then so sometimes those kind of firings, they give you that a gift, and it's juicy, and I don't know, I just love this piece. So once I went to that path of making sculptures, then you open another door, right? So there is so many possibilities that you can go. So then I start adding metal pieces on my clay. So the idea, these metal things, so it's wire and clay, and for me, those represent ideas, concepts, persons, you name it. So again, I'm still throwing and altering the piece, but it's still having an opening, and I'm still thinking about in my whole flowers or in my whole something, right? Then this piece, it was again throwing on the wheel. I start adding material, adding more, making it a little more complex. This piece is standing on a line or something like that, I don't remember. And I have the idea of sometimes you are just in the edge and you are just thinking, should I jump or should I not jump, right? You are just staying there. And I should pause because I forgot to mention that if you have a question anytime, you can just ask me. I forgot to mention that. So now I close the form, right? Like now, in my mind, I don't have to have the functionality part there. So I close the form, and it's still on the wheel. I'm still altering the piece. Now I one day look like an island. So I'm talking about a little bit of the concept of letting go or coming closer, either or. I think it can work. I'm trying to emulate that it looks like Earth, like the body looks like Earth. And I say those are little people, little concepts, little ideas. And that's another way to approach it. So I love this piece, and the reason I put it is because sometimes, as I mentioned it, like firing in a different atmospheres, sometimes just the gods of the kilns, they give you little presents. So I don't know if you can see, but that little drip over there, I just love that part. This piece I was trying to emulate like a little like at the body. So you can see like the spine there, and it could be little limbs. So just like a little bit of that concept is there. And then, as what they say, like go big or go home, I make, this one is one of my final pieces of my third year. I'm the model, I'm short, but it's still the piece is big, right? So, and with that, it comes the challenges. So if you, should I glaze it, how I glaze it, how I fire it. If you want to see how I glaze inside, because again, like I'm thinking about, it should hold water, it should hold something. So I glaze inside. If you want to see how it went, I have an Instagram little video there. So I finished my third year. So I go home, I go to, I just should mention it, that this piece doesn't live in my basement. For the third year, we have like a little show at the Gardiner. So that piece was there, and then I sold that piece. I was happy, yeah. So then I go back to my basement, right? And then so I start making like functional things again, like going to art fairs, selling my work there and here. But then I had a little, at school, they teach you about plaster, is one of the classes that you take. But the approach that they do is like really straightforward, right? Really traditional. So, and then I wanted a little bit more. So I found this school, is the International Ceramic Studio in Hungary. So I went to do a little residency there. They have a big facility where you can play with plaster. And so that's how I got into the way I built now. So this one, it was one of the first pieces that I made once I came back from that residency. Now I'm thinking about human figure. So as you can see, like all the vases that we make in clay, they emulate a little bit of like the human figure. I don't know if you can see it. For me, it's clear. It has a head, it has some shoulders, and it has a body. And then, so I asked a friend of mine to make that little wooden stand. I was looking at the Japanese shoes, like the wooden shoes that they use, and that was my interpretation of it. The beauty of plaster is that when you cast and once you have your mold, you can repeat and make the form over and over and over. That's the beauty that attracts me. I use the same mold in both pieces, but the treatment that I gave it was totally different. So in the first one, I just start taking pieces away to just explore, like to explore and to give like the internal, like to show the inside of the piece, I will say. Just leaving the silhouette, and I put it on the kiln, and I don't know if you can see, but it started like shifting, right? Like it started like warping up a little bit. And for the other one is I was just starting experimenting with spray. Like I would start spraying my glazes. Once more time, this is the same mold, just with different treatment. So as it will be more clear when I explain my process. So, but I start leaving like clay behind. And that took me to another path. So take me to the idea of like sometimes we are just like walking into life, like we are like living, and then you start putting those ideas, like you have concepts, somebody tells you something, you put it on, then somebody else tell you something, and you put it on, and then you start walking, and then everything it just comes too heavy, right? So either life stop you, like with a sickness or something, or you just stop. And then, so it's a moment to reflect, right? So should I take all that weight off, or should I keep carrying it? So that's when I make this piece. But as my duality stay there, now I make this piece, but in this piece, I don't feel that. I feel like I call them wings. I feel like that that clay is lifting the clay, like the piece is helping the clay. It make it feel like lighter. So as everything I think it looks heavy and you barely can walk, but then another moment you are light and you feel like you can fly, right? And then, so for this piece, I had found a little quote that it just caught my eyes, and I'm going to read it. So it says, "A mind that is stretched to a new ideas never returns to the original dimensions." And Oliver Wilde is the author. And so I was trying to, with that quote, I was trying to make a piece. So I made a piece, I cut it, and then I tried to put it back together, and I couldn't, right? So here I had I don't know if you can see or it's clear, I put it on firing, and then all the glaze run. So on the bottom you can see. So it got stuck on the kiln. I left it that way. I think it suits the piece. And this is just a little example of like what I had in the end of that exploration, a little family of pots there. Yes?
Are the tops, do they come off or is it all?
No, it's just one piece. You will see, but yeah, right now they're one piece. By then, as I mentioned it, when I went the first time to Sheridan, it was a diploma, it was 3 years. But then I find out that now they were offering a bachelor degree. So you just had to go and take some courses and some classes, and then I will get the degree. So I decided to go back for that. It just happened that it was COVID. So these were my classmates. For the first 6 months or something, I will not recognize them, like if I saw them on the street, right? And it's true. But we were lucky because only the craft area, it was open, so we work all the time. Like we were alone in the school, it was good. The parking, it was great. The traffic going to the school, it was fine. So we were lucky in that sense. So I go back to school, and I start experimenting now with texture on the pieces, different finishings. And here with that green-blue piece, is when it got me that all the chemistry that I left behind, that it bothered me, that I couldn't work on it, it was like coming back to me. Because now I'm not afraid to experiment with glazes. I'm not afraid of the chemistry that is behind, right? Then I show you. Okay. Then again, you plan, you have something in your mind, you glaze it, you put it on the kiln, you open the kiln, and accidents happen. So that piece, I land in another piece. I hope it was mine. I don't remember. And then the way I make the solution, I just put a brick to contrast, right, like the weight of the piece. But that little accident took me to another path. So now I start thinking, okay, so how I can add something to complement my forms, right? So this piece took me to another path. So this piece is like 18 inches high. So it's a little unstable just by nature. So I just put that little piece of brick there. I cut a piece of brick, and then I put it, and it helped with the stability, of course, but also I think it helps to the piece. It helps, I think it feels like complete now. It feels like it's standing, and it gives more presence. With that idea, now I make this piece. Now I'm thinking about wave, right? Like you are on a wave. This piece the name is like get off or not. And I'm thinking about that, right? Sometimes you are you are on the top, or you can be in the bottom, and then it's up to you to decide, like if you get off or you're not, right? Like sometimes it's good just to be in that stage, like life is just taking you, and that's okay too. So with this piece, I just evaluate like the idea of partnership. So you think you can do everything by yourself, like you are alone, like you can do it. But to be honest, it's not true, right? You always need like a partner, accomplice, somebody that is there with you. So I start cutting the clay and then make it fit in that brick, and then put in the other as a complement. So here I have the same idea. They are just touching. That can be two people, one people making one, right? Like two ideas making one. This piece is salt fire. And then I have, again, like I just make multiple pieces. So I put those pieces together, and I'm thinking how I'm going to connect them. So this piece is talking about how information pass on, but that information, it gets lost and lost and lost and lost, right? So you have information from your great-grandmother and goes to grandmother, to your mother, but sometimes just information gets lost. So here I'm going to give a little example of what I meant. My mom always told me, you cannot get a shower and go to bed, right? Like you cannot go to sleep with your hair wet because it will give you a headache. So I never did, and when I did, of course, I got a headache, right? So then I told my husband once that, and he said, it doesn't make sense what you're saying. So we went and researched, and there is nothing that it says that, right? Like nothing. So then one time I had the opportunity to ask my mom, and she's like, I said, oh, what is coming from? Like, what happened? And she said, no, I don't know. Your grandma told me. So you have those ideas, and you never know where they are coming. So after that, of course, now I shower at nighttime and go to bed. I don't get headaches. So by now, I'm like experimenting and trying to push myself. Like I just make this form, and then I put like an object in it. Like I know, like it's intentional, like the choose of color, like a bright color with an earth and wear. And I'm just thinking, like, it belongs or it doesn't belong. If it suits the piece, it doesn't suit the piece. Two pieces of clay that they don't make sense separate, they become one, it makes sense or not, right? I don't have the answer. It's just those concepts that I'm thinking about. Then it's still like, I think, this was a response of COVID. But also, I think it represents the actions that influence, like the actions that we do that influence on others, right? Like, so sometimes we make a little comment, like bad comment, and then we don't know how it's going to be affecting the other person. So we have to watch out for our behaviors, I will say, right? Again, so this one, I'm trying to push myself. I'm trying to like incorporate different elements within the piece. So I fire and glaze the first piece inside, and then I put that earth and weight around it. Of course, I need to think about how it's going to shrink, how much it's going to shrink, if it's going to collapse or not. And I'm just talking about like that, also that containment that sometimes we feel. This one is another accent. When I made it like this straight, there were straight lines, and then I opened the kiln, and everything have shift. But I think it works. I think it gives movement to the piece. I think the other way might be too static. I think I think it worked in the end too. So now I went back, I make another plaster mold, and I went back to that island idea that I had. But now there are no little islands, they are my mind or my body. This is what I was trying to represent here. It was like a 3D, I don't know if you're familiar with, but like the 3D CT scans, that it depends of the how dense is your body or how dense is what they are scanning. It gives you that color. So that's my mind, that's my body, and on top is like a little cloud that is just hovering there, like just sitting there, or an idea that it wants to come out of you. And again, like I'm experimenting with texture, I'm experimenting with forms, and then I make a specific this form, and I knew I had to put something on top. So I chose that color just to contrast the earthy part of the other one, and I tried to make it like so it fits like tight, right? I'm firing them separate, so it wasn't easy. And then I'm just thinking about belonging, right? That piece there belongs, so it adds to the piece, or it doesn't add to the piece. I don't know. Then I was almost in the end of my time at Sheridan, and then I want to push myself a little bit more. So this time I just make some slabs, I put them together. The only rule that I had in mind is I will explain the process later, but it has to have an entrance and it had to have a exit. That was the only thing. So I make this piece. So it looks weird, the photo, it will make sense later. So I make the piece, I cast the piece, and then I took it out and everything, and then I was really, really surprised. I got this. So I don't know if it's clear for you, but like if any had an opinion, what is it, how it looks like? I don't know. It looks like something for you? No? Yes? Okay, so for me, it looks like a heart. And I was really surprised, right? Because here I am talking about self-growth, I'm talking about letting go of things, talking about growth, but we cannot do all those things if we don't have love in our life, right? Like if we don't feel love, if like love is not around us. So I was really surprised and I was really happy. But of course, in order for that piece to look like a heart, it has to be facing that way. So then I start like thinking how I'm going to display that piece. It wasn't intentional in the beginning, but I think it looks like I'm like, the way I hang it is like the veins that they are going through, right? Like for the blood that it goes through the heart. And the finish that I'm giving them is because I was thinking like we love, but we don't love everybody in the same depth, right? So it has to have that you don't love the same way your dog that your husband. Sometimes, I don't know which one you love more. But that is the idea there. So I make a series of them. So for this one, again, is the heart there, and the little base is like the community or your family that is just holding you there, right? Like it's just holding your heart, like giving you stability. Yes?
What is it at the bottom?
A little blood coming out. Yeah, it's just a little piece of glaze. And then this one, it was thinking about like the fake news that you get, and then you are just, I don't know, getting ready in the morning and you are listening to news, and then you don't know how much it's affecting you, right? Like you don't realize, but so this is my response of like fake news. I just pierce the piece, and then the piece is standing by those little sticks of newspaper there. And that was like one of my last pieces when I was in Sheridan. Then I had applied for a residency. As you know, sometimes you have to apply for a residency like almost a year behind or something. So by then I got the letter saying that I was accepted to residency in the States, and it was this place that is a sculpture space. They give you working space, and then they also give you where to sleep. The only thing is that place, and I knew when I applied that it was a metal workshop and a wood workshop. So I knew I wasn't going to work with clay. So what I did is I brought my pieces with me, like some of my pieces, and I was going to work around them to put some metal and incorporate some metal with them. So in the far one is, that's my piece there, like it's just a bisque piece, and I'm trying to see how I'm going to make it happen. I realized that it couldn't, like what I want to do is like armor, like I put but because it gets hot and everything once you are welding, you cannot do it. So that's what I end up having. So that's the skeleton of the piece, and then I finish it that way. But my original idea was that I was going to make an armor around it. One day I might do it. So then that idea I translated to the wall. So I want to, from my heart, because now I'm obsessed with hearts. So that's how I end up having these ones. This one, that's a photo that I took over there. But the idea is that, so that is paper on all of them. But the idea is that I will make slabs or something like that in clay, that it can be incorporated with the metal part. So the next photos are little responses that I had from that working with metal and plaster, metal and my pieces. So I took that piece over there. That's, again, is me, is my mind. And then the response that I did, it was the synapses that it happens when we learn and when we try something new. It's just like all these chemical reactions that are happening there. And there is another one with the same idea, just different approach, right? Like all these ideas just hovering there around us. For this one, this piece by itself, it doesn't stand up, right? Like, so if I put it like without anything, it will just fold. So I make this little stand, like metal stand, and now it's holding the piece. But now I'm thinking about like shadows. So I make a series of them that are like just longer and shorter shadows. And this is another response of the heart thing. I don't know if it's there yet either. And then last year I had the opportunity to have a solo show in the Carnegie, and this is one of the pieces. It's called A Place to Land. I took the idea of the waving that I did before, and then I just translated it to metal, and it looks more like a stairs, like escalator kind of thing. And then this is the place that you can land if you want to fall. This piece is called Another Chance, and I was thinking about the idea that sometimes you are just walking and then there is this cement and nothing looks like it's alive, and then you see a little space and a little flower is coming up, right? Like, so that always amazed me, that how little plants can survive in where you think it cannot be survived. So I'm incorporating the clay, the part of the flowers are made with metal, and I'm using some paper there. And now, so that's another response. I'm again playing with the same structure, with the same plaster mold. I'm just adding different materials. It's metal, just to see how it works. And that one too, I'm using bright colors just to make a contrast about the rigid part of the metal. And okay, bear with me. We are almost there. So now I'm going to talk about my process. So many things that I talk about, like they will make sense now. So I will say that even though my work looks really, really strict and really concise and really tight, the process, the way I approach it is not. It doesn't make sense, but that's what it is. So first, I'm not sure if everybody is familiar with casting and using plasters, so I'm just going to explain a little bit here. So you have your plaster mold, and then you pour liquid clay. That's basically what it happens. So the plaster absorbs all the water from the plaster, from the clay, water clay, and then you are left. It depends how long you leave it. It start absorbing and it start giving you a thickness. That's how plaster molds work. So this is the interior of something. So that thickness depends how long do you leave the clay on the piece. So that's a little class there. So now I go back to my process. So I start with a cylinder, just a plaster cylinder. I kind of plan a little bit how I'm going to approach it. And then I start carving out. So I put two pieces together and I kind of line up how it's going to work. And then I start carving out. So one piece I put it beside, and then I mark how much I carve, and then I carve, and then I put the next one, and then so on, so on, so on. So this is an example that how a piece looks in the inside. So that, and then of course you have to let the clay dry a little bit in order for that plaster pieces to come out, and that's how I start peeling the piece. So you can see here, so that mold it has around 40 pieces coming together, and that's the result. So here's another, this is the view of what I'm going to show you next. So this is the interior piece. So now I'm thinking about how I can make them like bigger and taller. Making, like plaster is heavy and it's hard to work with it. So my solution, it was like I'm going to start stacking the plaster mold. So it will make sense in the next one. So I stack 1, 2, 3 pieces together. Each one is cut in 16, 17 parts, and the end result is something like that. So yes, so they are putting together, right? But in the end, also the process, it gives me that freedom of with one plaster mold, I can get different shapes because it depends how I place them and how I stack them. I have different. So that is giving me the plaster molds are giving me that freedom. And even though if I try to make exactly the same one, it will not be, right? Even like I'm using plaster and I have that process of repetition, but just the way you place them is a different piece each time. So for this one, I use like 3 different, except the little ones. I think I have 2 or 3 molds from that. But here it comes. So making molds is heavy, is time-consuming, is like labor, right? Like I have to carve each one because once you also carve out, you have to sand, and then you start from the 80 grit to 400. So it's time-consuming. And then so I start thinking, okay, so what else I can make with the pieces the molds that I already have? So I start experimenting. So the short one is I use the same plaster mold that I use for the round one. So I just alter. The other ones are made with, I have a cup and a bowl, and that's how I made the other ones, just placing them in a different form and adding different spouts. And that's it. So I was just to show you, I have a studio. I shared a studio with 2 friends. We have a studio in the cotton factory, and we were lucky. Like I was like in my 3rd year of Sheridan, like in my last year of Sheridan when I found this space. We found this space. It's lovely. We have big windows. I'm not in my basement. So if you want to find me and talk to me, you can come to the studio here. I teach Wednesday and Thursdays, or you can go to the cotton factory, and I can show you my studio there. And that finished my talk. Thank you. Yes?
Of course I have.
Yes.
So that was amazing. I think I'm still processing and I'm thinking of what I'm going to steal. What do you do on the wheel then? Like if you come to this transition and you're doing these costume roles, which are gorgeous, but I know what your wheel work is like, and it's incredible. So you must be still doing that, or what are you?
Yeah, so I still, I do my sculpture work, and then also, I still going to art fairs and those kind of things.
Oh, you do more?
But just, functional, yeah. Yeah, that's it. Any questions? Yes?
So I can see, for example, the progression, when you started all the way to when you're working with plaster. So when you're working with plaster mold, you obviously have to have a preparation, like something in mind. And sometimes you modify depending on the challenges that you find in the process. But by the end when you have the results, and of course the glazes, you also have some sort of control, you experiment, but you also add some sort of an ingredient to, I don't know what's going to happen. But where do you find the final concept of the piece? So sometimes what happens, I'm talking about personal experience, this I have a plan, I'm developing it, and then the final result is I didn't know that I was going through this. I didn't know that this is actually what was inside in my mind. So how is the process for you? Is this kind of the same, or you have a different way of processing or planning the final results?
I just, as I say, I just barely plan it, right? So one start is, I know I'm going to be making a tall thing. That I know that. And then I just start carving. But the beauty of the plaster is that I always can alter the piece. So some of these forms, I already alter them. Already I don't have those molds because you can always carve out the plaster. So even if I didn't like it, sometimes I have trouble when they have to join, when I join the pieces, right? Like the joints, like when I'm stacking, sometimes I had trouble there. And then so that's when I have to go back and just refine the form a little bit. But to be honest, it's really, really not random, but it's not as strict as it looks.
It's more like a response, rather than plan or I'm inspired by this, and then so this is what.
Of course, I want to make big, right? Like that will be my plan. Like I will love to make, but the plaster, once it has all the liquid and everything, it becomes really, really heavy. So it's hard to use. I need to go to a factory or something like that. Yes.
Your work is very inspiring. Do you do workshops on plaster molds?
I have been planning, but yes, I will in the future. Nobody wants. The problem is when you mix clay and plaster, it's hard to work with both of them. So people it's hard. Like here, they don't want me because they don't want all that dust that is involved. Yeah, so that's the problem. Yeah, but I will in the future. Yes, welcome. Somebody else? No? Okay. Yes.
You in your talk, I'm going to paraphrase for you, but you had said something like, sometimes you're standing on the edge and you're looking over, deciding, am I going to jump? Can you speak to that more as an artist? How often you encounter that, the fear that can sometimes be there? How much, what is that like for you at times? Does it happen a lot in your work? Do you try to find those moments?
I try to put myself in those moments. Like I like to challenge myself. Like I get bored easily. I'm not judging anybody or anything, but I could not make the same work for 10 years. So I like to push myself, and I think that I put myself in those little situations. Like with the heart, right? Like I say, I want to make something, but I didn't want to have any concept whatsoever. I just put clay together, And the way you make it is like I couldn't anticipate because you are making the negative of the positive. So I didn't know how it was going to look in the end. And it was a really nice surprise that, right? So yeah, I like try to push myself in those. And that's what I took that residency, right? About it was metal and wood. Like I just put out of my comfort zone a little bit.
Do you have a strategy when you get to that moment to make yourself jump in a sense? Because it can be very scary, right? There's always the fear of failure on the other side, I think, in that. Do you, are there things that you're telling yourself, or you're trying to get yourself over there?
I have so many failures. I didn't show them, but there are so many. There are so many pieces left behind, right? And then I just keep trying. Or within all that failure, there is a little, right? Like there is a little light there that you go through, right? But there are a lot of failures.
She puts a pillow in
Yeah.
your sculpture. You're about to jump.
Yeah, and then, sometimes you have a pillow and sometimes you have the cement, right? But yeah, yes?
I really love your colors in your pieces.
Oh, thanks.
Could you speak for like color choices? There's so many blues and ways to make charcoals. Or do I speak to that?
I do a lot of testing. Like I try a lot of glazes. Like I'm constantly like testing glazes and combinations. And so I remember one time, I don't know if it was going to be, like when I make this piece, I was trying two glazes together, and I didn't know the color. So, of course, my tests are like little, right? So I remember when I opened the kiln and I saw that combination, I said, oh, this is a winner. So I test a lot, and of course, I don't know how I choose the colors, to be honest. Sometimes it's just I'm testing, and something works, and so I stay with that. Yeah. Yes?
Do you feel like having an education in chemistry has like influenced the way that you approach the things you make at all, or like helped you in any way, or not really?
I think so. So I battled a lot when I came back. Like when I came here and that I couldn't work in what I studied, right? Like it was like, oh my God, 4 years that I lost in my life. And right, like the career, it was a hard career. So I struggle a little bit with that. But then when I realized that all that chemistry knowledge, I could apply all that chemistry knowledge. I think it helped me heal, and it helps my pieces. So I think I experiment a lot because I have that chemistry degree. Yeah, thanks. Yes?
I love how diverse all your work is. Do you have the favorite or preference to plastic, metal?
I haven't experimented a lot with metal. I would love to experiment more. Like I have basic knowledge, right? So I think I would love to like go and like have some time to experiment with more metal. I see myself like experimenting more and more with metal and trying to incorporate the clay. I still loving clay. Yeah.
Thank you so much. One question that goes off of your question was like, and you have little testers. I've heard that when you make a small piece and then when you're scaling it up, like the glaze will act differently on a larger piece. So what size is a tester so you know how it'll act when you blow it up? Like,
so that's what I have, these little those little ones. So sometimes, that's my
Same type of angles and stuff.
So it has the same feeling, but I'm just wasting a little bit of clay. Yeah, usually that size is my test. Yeah.
You know those ones where you have, like, they look like dots, but dots within dots, like colors. It was one of the earlier pieces.
Oh, I know which one.
You know, just wondering how you did shoot.
It's coming. That one?
Dim low.
The heart scan.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Oh, doesn't want to come. That one?
Yeah, like
So what I do is I brush the color slip. So you color your slip, and then I brush it, each layer, and then you have to take notes, which color have you layered, and then you start just scraping out. Wow. Yeah. And then I do that, and then I pour casting slip, and then I join them together. Yeah, it's time-consuming. And then because of, like, you are scraping, so now the thickness of the piece is not even, so you get a lot of cracks there, too. You can get a lot of cracks there. Yeah.
Do you experiment with different clay bodies, or do you find yourself returning to the same clay body?
I have my own, so I have one clay body that does the clay body that I use. It works. It's flexible. It gives me that, yeah. I don't get so many cracks, so I don't experiment with so much. Like, I have so much happening in the other, right? Like, so that is like something that I know it works, and I just stuck with that.
Yeah, it's hard to experiment on every, like, axis at the same time.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.